As 2023 opened, I took up taiko drumming again, something that we had done as a family more than a decade ago. And back then, of the three of us, I was definitely the weak link. When we did the songs, I was always just a little behind, and I was so glad to be connecting with heritage, which was one of the reasons we had moved here to California. This is what I learned in 2023. I'm still not a natural at taiko. And even though I'm not that tall, in a group of Japanese women, I am a jolly eggshell ecru giant. Gawky and now middle-aged, thickened. Plus, I am still a quarter beat off, not being blessed with the musical gift or opportunities of all the others of my family. And to top it all off, as we emerge from these post-2020 times, my erratic schedule means that I'm actually more inconsistent than I was a decade ago. Yet, despite all of this, I'm actually a lot less nervous when I drum, less judgmental, and more joyful about the opportunity to play, and so I enjoy myself a lot more when I get there and am actually a much better part of the group. What doesn't accompany me on my Monday night drummings this time are all those judging voices that often call me out, and they did more so when I was actively parenting, shouting that I needed to do a better job, highlighting my endless stream of mistakes. To the extent that these voices help me keep striving to do my best, well, they were maybe a little bit useful. But honestly, to the extent that they made me paralyzed with all that I wasn't doing, I can honestly say they were not really helpful. Today, I can't believe that these voices are at all helpful to the people I see in active parenting. Because parenting in 2010, back then, 2011, that was one thing. I cannot imagine how hard it is now, though I try to be sympathetic and empathetic, to parent in 2023. And I don't think that anyone needs any voice telling them anything other than, just keep going. You've got this. You are good enough. Ken Banau is a psychotherapist and researcher who has written on shame extensively. And he explains that shame has many forms, and one of them he calls good enough shame, of which he writes, in good enough shame, the person recognizes from a non-reactive, accepting place that they have not been true to themselves. That they have not been true to themselves. Now, Banau is a clinician. He's writing from a technical frame. Others might characterize this kind of shame as guilt. Either way, it's a place where people know they still can change, that they have autonomy over their decisions and behaviors. There's another couple kinds he mentions, and one of them is called not me shame, and the other is called no me shame, N-O-M-E, no me. In these forms, people feel themselves to be so defective because they were trained with messages of shaming that they do not believe that anything that they do can change, and thus they are paralyzed. So in times of challenge like the ones we live in today, kind of seems like the constant state that our contemporary parents are working in, I don't think that we need that kind of shame. In fact, it might be toxic. If we're restarting in all the different ways that we're having to restart in this year and the year before, we don't need that kind of shame. Maybe this is your first Mother's Day as a single parent. Maybe you're in the first year of parenting a teen, maybe the first year of having an adult child who isn't here today, maybe the first year of an empty nest. Shame isn't what you need at this time. And in all the other realms of our life that we are restarting as well, maybe you're starting a new job. Maybe you're trying to survive in a job that's transformed by this post-2020 world. Maybe you're in the first years of retirement. Maybe you're trying to reconnect with others after a period of isolation and finding it really hard. Shame of that kind isn't what we need. Those maladaptive forms of shame don't let us grow. We need to remember that we're good enough. Now, Derek Winnicott was a psychologist from the last century who coined the term good enough mother. It's the idea that Being completely devoted and attentive to a child's every need is important in the earliest years of a child's life, and yet giving that child the ability to see their own ability to cope with challenges is actually very important later in their development as well. So it's the balance between that, the giving and also the freedom to make your own mistakes. As Madge Wedge says, reflecting on Winnicott's work, with good enough mothering, a child has the ability to live in two worlds, the world of illusion, fantasy, and magic on the one hand, and in the other, a world that doesn't always conform to their wishes. I don't think we're living in a world that always conforms to our wishes. Could be wrong about that, but I'm thinking I might be right. And I don't think we really know how to make the world more predictable and joyful again all the time, not to mention fair and decent. And in this world, I think we're always reparenting ourselves. And maybe we need to remember that balance, right, between giving ourselves acceptance and also believing that we can cope with what's ahead that we didn't predict. We don't know how to end the forces of extremism or look at some ways of doing it. And people that think they have a simple solution, I believe, might be taking a form of spiritual bypass, honestly. We do know that a commitment to keep on growing, including growing in our understanding of ourselves, is a critical tool right now. And in our faith, that's something that we celebrate. Life in all its forms. The smallest little paramecium in the greatest unexplored galaxies. When we consider the world that way, we know we will always have so much to learn. Yesterday at our Breath and Spirit retreat, and I'll just mention that if you haven't been to one, they're just a wonderful time of shedding a lot. There's some handouts in the Borton Hall that give you a sample of some of the things we do there. But yesterday we had a session of sound and forest bathing in our chapel, Redwood Grove. And I was really looking forward to that because our friend who leads us in that, Nancy Foster, is incredibly gifted. I got into the grove, I settled down next to one of the redwoods and was really enjoying myself. I began listening to the birds and waiting for the sounds of the bulls to start singing. And then I heard another sound. It was the sound of an electric vehicle. It has a very particular otherworldly whine. And in my mind, it was just offsetting the sound of the bulls when they began in a way that I found really distracting. But I thought to myself, it's okay, they're just leaving the parking lot. They'll be gone soon. But then it went on and on and on. And I realized it was a parent teaching their child to parallel park in our upper parking lot. So I said to myself, it's okay. You know how to do this in meditation. Just let it go. Be accepting. So I was accepting of the sound. And then I heard another sound. It was the sound of the forklift across the street moving the giant pile of wood chips that had just been deposited on Friday. So there was a percussive sound, that was going as the whine happened and the bowls happened. And I said, just let it go. It's fine. So it was about that time that the service across the street at the temple came to that point where they started to pipe the cantors the singing out into their grove. And this very loud, beautiful singing from the cantor began to enter into the mix of all we were listening to in the redwoods. And I just started to laugh. Because I thought, it's such a privilege to be here with other people of good intention in this very complicated world. And it is good enough. Kenneth Bonneau says, we can move beyond our shame, even the good enough kind, into what he calls pro-being pride. He describes it in 3 forms. I delight in being me, delighting in you, delighting in being yourself with me. That's the first. The second, I delight in being me, delighting in being me, delighting in being myself with me. I delight in being me, delighting in being me, delighting in being myself with all that is. And that was the spirit I found again yesterday. Amani Perry, the author of Breathe, A Letter to My Son, says, "We cannot waste our time believing we can achieve an ideal self or community. All that we can ever do is attempt to live well in right relationship, pursuing an order that preserves and protects the integrity, resilience, and beauty of everyone, a commitment to generosity and mutuality." If all the children of the world, who at some level are all of our children, could have one day of that, let us savor it in this world. Let us not lose ourselves in shame. Let us not get paralyzed by mistakes. Let us instead keep learning, leaning, turning, seeing, rejoicing, and savoring all that is. Let us strive towards that world of which we dream and appreciate that in each moment, somehow we will find a way to have what we are and what is around us be good enough.